In 1970, a single-income family could buy a house, raise 3 kids, take a vacation every year, and retire comfortably. That same family today, with 2 incomes, cannot afford a starter home in most American cities. Let that hit you for a second. 2 incomes cannot afford what 1 income bought 50 years ago. The American dream did not get harder to achieve. It got mathematically impossible for the average family. And the most disturbing part is not that it happened. It is that it happened so slowly, so quietly, that most people do not even realize it is gone. My name is Money Truth, and today we are going to talk about something that every American feels, but almost nobody has the full picture on. The American dream is not struggling. It is not on life support. It is not going through a rough patch. It is mathematically dead for the average family. And I'm going to prove it to you with numbers so clear and so brutal that you will never look at your financial situation the same way again. If this is the kind of truth you've been looking for, hit that subscribe button right now, because this is exactly what Money Truth exists to expose. Now, before you think this is just another doom and gloom video about how hard things are, let me be very clear about something. This video is not about politics. It is not about who is to blame. It is not about left or right or any of that. This video is about mathematics. Pure, cold, undeniable mathematics that shows exactly what happened to the American dream, when it happened, why it happened, and most importantly, what the families who are still living it are doing differently. Because here's the thing that most people miss completely. The American dream is not dead for everyone. It is dead for people who are still following the old rules, the rules that worked in 1970 and stopped working somewhere around 2005. The families who understand the new rules, the real rules, are still building generational wealth, still buying homes, still retiring early. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what those rules are. Let us start with the most important number in this entire conversation. In 1970, the median home price in America was $23,000. The median household income was $9,870. That means the average American home cost approximately 2.3 times the annual household income. Read that again. A house cost 2.5 years of income. Today, the median home price in America is $420,000. The median household income is $78,000. That means the average American home now costs 5.4 times the annual household income. The ratio more than doubled in 50 years. But it gets worse because that comparison uses household income, which today requires 2 workers, where 1970 only required 1. When you adjust for the fact that 1970 families had 1 income and today's families need 2, the real ratio is closer to 10 times income for a single earner household. A house that once cost 2.3 years of one person's salary now costs 10 years of one person's salary. That is not a housing market. That is a generational wealth transfer machine, moving money from young working families to older property owners at a scale that has never existed before in American history. And housing is just the beginning. Let's talk about college. In 1970, the average annual cost of a 4-year public university was approximately $400 per year. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $3,000 in today's dollars. The actual average cost today is $27,000 per year for a public university, $55,000 per year for a private university. College costs have increased at 9 times the rate of inflation. 9 times. A degree that your parents could pay for by working summers now requires $100,000 in debt before you earn your first dollar. And healthcare. In 1970, Americans spent approximately 6% of their income on healthcare. Today, the average American family spends between 18 and 22% of their income on healthcare costs, including premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket expenses. Housing costs tripled relative to income. College costs multiplied by 9. Healthcare tripled. These are not opinions. These are Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers, Federal Reserve data, Census Bureau reports. The 3 biggest expenses of a middle-class life, housing, education, healthcare, have all exploded at rates that make the 1970 American dream mathematically impossible to replicate on a modern salary. Now, here's where the story gets truly dark, because you might be thinking, Okay, things cost more, but wages went up too, right? Yes, they did go up, just not nearly enough. In 1970, the median American worker earned approximately $9,870 per year. Adjusted for inflation, that would be about $77,000 today. The actual median income today? $59,000 for an individual worker. Let that sit for a moment. After adjusting for inflation, the average American worker makes less today than they did in 1970. The economy grew by $20 trillion. Corporate profits hit all-time highs every decade. The stock market multiplied by 30. The wealth of the top 1% increased by 400%. And the median worker's real purchasing power actually declined. This is not a coincidence. This is the result of a 50-year systematic shift in how economic growth is distributed. In 1970, workers received approximately 52% of corporate revenue as wages. Today, that number has dropped to 43%. That 9% difference, applied across the entire American economy, represents trillions of dollars that used to flow to workers as wages and now flow to shareholders as profits. You didn't get a pay cut. Your paycheck number went up. But while your paycheck grew by 3% per year, housing grew by 6%. Healthcare grew by 8%. Every single year, the gap between what you earn and what a middle-class life costs got slightly wider. For 50 years. And nobody sent you a memo. So how did the average American family survive this gap between stagnant wages and exploding costs? They borrowed. Total American consumer debt in 1970 was approximately $140 billion. Total American consumer debt today, credit cards, auto loans, student loans, personal loans, is over $17 trillion. That's a 120-fold increase. While the population roughly doubled and inflation roughly 7 times, debt increased 120 times. Debt became the American dream replacement plan. When wages could no longer fund the lifestyle, credit cards, student loans, auto loans, and home equity lines stepped in to fill the gap. The average American household today carries $10,000 in credit cards at 24% interest, $30,000 in auto loans, $37,000 in student loans if they went to college, and the mortgage that represents 40% of their monthly take-home pay. The total debt load of the average middle-class family is so heavy that even a modest income disruption, a layoff, a medical emergency, a divorce, can trigger a complete financial collapse from which recovery takes years. This is not financial mismanagement. This is the predictable mathematical outcome of a 50-year experiment in which costs rose faster than wages and debt was sold as the solution. The American dream was not earned. For the last 30 years, it was financed, and the bill is coming due. Now, here's the part of the story that almost nobody tells you, and it's the most important part. The American dream did not die everywhere. It did not die for everyone. It died specifically for people who kept following the 1970 playbook in a 2026 economy. Go to college, get a job, buy a house, work for 40 years, retire. That playbook worked brilliantly in 1970. It creates financial disaster in 2026 because every single step of that playbook has been turned into a wealth extraction mechanism. College turned into a debt trap. Home buying turned into a leverage trap at the wrong time in the wrong markets. Working for 40 years turned into a wage stagnation trap. Traditional retirement turned into an underfunded nightmare. But here's what the people who are still winning understand. The dream is not dead. The old path to the dream is dead. And there's a completely different path, one that works with 2026 economics instead of fighting them, that is creating more first-generation wealth builders than any period in American history. Let me show you what that path looks like. The single biggest wealth builder for the 1970 generation was home ownership. Buy a house at 2.3 times your income, watch it appreciate, retire with equity. That math worked because homes were cheap relative to income. Today, homes cost 5.4 times income in the average market and 10 to 15 times income in major cities. At these price-to-income ratios, buying a home is not wealth building. It is wealth preservation at best and wealth destruction at worst. The people winning in 2026 are not refusing to own homes. They're being extremely strategic about when, where, and how they buy. They're not buying starter homes in overpriced markets to keep up with their peers. They're renting strategically while building investment portfolios and buying when the math actually makes sense. Your parents told you that a college degree was the key to financial security. They were right in 1970, when a degree was rare and valuable and affordable. Today, 40% of Americans have college degrees. The scarcity that made degrees valuable is gone. The cost that made them affordable is gone. But the cultural expectation that you need one is never stronger. The result is millions of Americans starting their financial lives with $50,000 to $100,000 in debt for credentials that no longer deliver the income premium they once did. The people winning in 2026 are not avoiding education. They are choosing education with ruthless return on investment discipline. Trade skills, certifications, specific technical degrees with clear high-income pathways, not $200,000 liberal arts degrees from brand-name schools. In 1970, you could build a middle-class life on one income stream, your job. The job paid enough, came with benefits, and offered a pension. All three of those things are gone for most Americans. Jobs no longer pay enough relative to costs. Benefits have been gutted. Pensions have been replaced with 401ks that most employees barely fund. The people winning in 2026 have multiple income streams, not because they are grinding themselves to death with side hustles, but because they built assets that generate income independently of their time. Index funds, rental properties, small businesses, digital assets. They stop depending on a single employer for 100% of their financial security because that single point of failure is now too dangerous. Perhaps the most insidious killer of the American dream is the way consumer culture convinced an entire generation that spending is success. New car every 3 years, house upgrade every 5 years, vacation photos every summer, the latest phone, the newest kitchen. All of it marketed as the American dream, when in reality, all of it is the American dream destroyer. The people who are building real wealth in 2026 made one fundamental mindset shift. They stopped measuring their success by what they consume and started measuring it by what they own. Not what they drive, what they own. Not where they vacation, what they own. Not what their house looks like from the outside, what they own. Net worth became their scoreboard, and everything else became noise. So what does the American dream look like in 2026 for the people who are actually living it? It looks nothing like the 1970 version, and that is exactly the point. The 1970 dream was defined by a house. The new dream is defined by a number, the number at which your investments generate enough passive income to cover your living expenses. When your money works harder than you do, that is the new American dream. And the path to that number is not a 30-year mortgage and a pension. It is aggressive early investing, multiple income streams, and ruthless prioritization of net worth over lifestyle appearance. Here is what the new dream actually looks like in numbers. A 25-year-old who invests $800 per month in a diversified index fund earning 8% annual return reaches financial independence by age 52. Not retirement at 65. Financial independence at 52. The ability to choose whether to work, not the obligation to work. The same person who spends that $800 per month on car payments, subscriptions, and lifestyle upgrades works until 67, hoping Social Security covers the gap. Same income, same opportunities, completely different outcomes. The only variable is what they do with the money between 25 and 52. The people winning in 2026 are not necessarily the ones staying in expensive coastal cities to chase salaries. They are the remote workers who earn San Francisco salaries while living in Tulsa or Boise or Chattanooga, where the same money buys 3 times the lifestyle and 10 times the savings rate. Geographic arbitrage, the strategy of earning in a high-cost market while living in a low-cost one, is creating more first-generation wealth than any single strategy in the modern economy. The highest-paid workers in 2026 are not necessarily the most credentialed. They are the most skilled. Cybersecurity professionals, AI specialists, electricians, plumbers, surgical technicians. The trades that were looked down upon by the college at all cost generation are now producing incomes that rival lawyers and doctors without the $200,000 in debt that comes with those professions. The American dream is not dead, but the version of it that your parents sold you, the house, the white picket fence, the job with the pension, the predictable path from point A to point B, that version is gone. Mathematically, permanently, irreversibly gone. The costs that made it possible have tripled. The wages that funded it have stagnated. The debt that replaced it is crushing a generation. But here is what I want you to take from this video. The people who built wealth on the old path didn't do it because the path was easy. They did it because the path was clear. They knew the rules, they followed them, the rules worked. You are living in a moment where the old rules are broken and the new rules are not yet written in a way that everyone can see. But the new rules exist. The new path exists. The families who are building generational wealth in 2026 are not luckier than you. They are not smarter than you. They are not born into better circumstances. They just learned the new rules before the average person figured out the old ones stopped working. This channel exists for one reason: to show you the new rules before it's too late to use them. The American dream did not die. It just moved. And now you know where to find it. Subscribe to Money Truth, because the truth about your money is the most valuable thing nobody ever taught you.